everybody! Welcome to the 3 PM Bake Along. Today we are making iced buns. That's right, and not just any iced buns, jammy iced buns. So hop on, we'll wait for everyone to join along. I know there are a few people baking along today, so I'm going to wait for them to hop on board until I see them pop up and I know they're watching. We're just going to mill around. We're just going to take our time with it. What a glorious rainy day. Perfect day to spend time in your kitchen baking. And what perfect recipe than something to do with bread, because it takes forever. So you will while away these drizzly hours making your own iced buns. I'm very excited about this. It's going to be amazing. Let's make sure my video's working. I can get that up and running. We're going to go back to basics a little bit and I'm going to talk you through the fundamentals of making bread. For those that have made bread with me before, it will be a little bit repetitive, I apologise, but I want to make sure that everyone has got the perfect skills for making bread perfectly every time. Because if you follow these steps, there should be nothing wrong with your bread. You should be able to make perfect bread every time you try it. Now, as I've said before, it's quite a long process. You've got to prove it. It takes about any kind of bread recipe to make good bread takes about 4 hours. And that is a lot of your life to spend to not have something edible at the end of it. So we're going to take our time. I'm going to run through the fundamentals of making bread while we make our rice buns so that you can make bread every time. Hi everyone, morning, afternoon, Rich. How's everybody? Happy Saturday. I hope you're all well. Let's make some iced buns. So we will need, for this part, we're just making our dough and then our dough is going to rest. So we need a nice big bowl. Now you want a big bowl because this is the bowl we are going to prove our bread in and we want to give it room to grow. So once your dough is made, pick a bowl. If you're not using your mixing bowl, pick a bowl that's big enough or a tub, anything like that, that your dough can sit quite small in the bottom and it has plenty of room to double in size. You'll also need a pan. We're going to warm up our milk in the pan. Spatula, love a good spatula, weighing scales, and that is pretty much it, apart from obviously all of your lovely ingredients. So, what do we need to make bread? You only need 4 ingredients to make bread. Bread flour, yeast, water and salt or flavour. So those are the only things that you need to make bread. Have those ingredients, you can make bread. However, we are making an enriched bread. Anything you add to those fundamental ingredients, fundamental's my favourite word today everyone, I'm going to be saying fundamentally a lot, it's fundamental. Those are the only ingredients you need to make bread. So anything you add to those 4 ingredients is going to hinder the growth of your bread and is going to actually stop it and slow down that yeast. So we want to be mindful of that when we prove our dough, because the more we add, the longer it's going to need to prove, the more time it's going to need for our yeast and things to work. So we're adding milk, we're adding butter, and we're also adding eggs, as well as the jam filling that we're going to be adding later. So bear that in mind. You're going to need to give your dough a bit more time because it's got all these other added things. So the first thing we need to do is get our milk warming. So I want you to get a nice pan. Doesn't need to be a big pan, just a small pan. And we're going to measure out our milk in grams. This is the most precise way to measure out liquids. Now obviously some liquids are different because they're more viscose, but generally grams and mils is the same thing when it comes to water, milk, anything very runny like that. So we are measuring out 225 grams of milk. Now I'm using full fat milk. Doesn't matter if you've got skimmed or semi-skimmed. Full fat just gives it a bit of a richness, a bit richer, but whatever milk you have will work just fine. So weigh out your 225 grams of milk and we're going to put that onto the hob just to warm through. Now we don't want it to get too hot, we're literally just warming it. So we're going to keep an eye on it and make sure it doesn't start to boil or anything like that. Otherwise we're going to need to leave it to cool down, wasting precious baking time. So 25 grams of milk, and we're putting it over on a really low heat to warm it. Now, let's go back to the basics. What do we need for making bread? Bread flour. We should measure that out now. Yeast. Got our yeast. We need water or liquid, and we need salt. So, let's weigh out our bread flour so that we can stick to what we know. The base of our bread is bread flour. So we need 500 grams of bread flour. 500 grams of bread flour is going into our bowl. Ta-da! 500 grams of bread flour. Crack open my new bag of flour. Now 500 grams always seems like not so much, but once you add all the liquid to it, it doesn't make like a massive amount of dough. So 500 grams of bread flour, and then we need yeast. So if you are using easy bake or fast action yeast, weigh your yeast in on top of your flour now, and you only need 7 grams of yeast. So fast action or easy bake yeast, weigh it out dry on top of your flour. I am using dried active yeast, which needs reactivating. So if, like me, you are using dried active yeast and not easy bake fast action yeast, weigh your 7 grams of yeast into a separate little bowl or little jug, and we are going to use some of our warm milk to activate it. So now we have 2 of our base ingredients measured out. We've got our flour and we've got our yeast. The other 2 things we need are salt and water. Now, salt is what we use for flavour. Now, it's going to be a bit different with this recipe because we are making a sweet bread. We're making a sweet dough. But we still need a little bit of salt. So I want you to get your salt, and I want you to put a couple, like a pinch, a couple of little twists of salt in on top of your flour. Now that's going to balance out the sweetness, and it's going to enhance the flavour of our bread. So there's 3 ingredients. Flour, done. Yeast, done. Bit of salt in there, and now we need to add our liquid, our water. Now today we're not using any water because we are making an enriched dough. Our water is substituted by our milk and our other dairy products. So that's it. We've got our basics: flour, salt, yeast, and we're warming up our liquids on the hob. Let's have a look at our milk and see how it's getting on. Now, you don't want your milk to boil, you don't want it to get too hot. Basically, you want it to be kind of body temperature. So the best thing to do is dip in your finger, and if it feels warm to the touch, or you can't really feel the temperature of it, it's done. Now mine is perfectly nicely warmed up. So I'm going to leave it to one side, and I'm going to concentrate on the other ingredients for a minute. So the other things that we need are butter. Now we can't add our butter in a lump because we want it to incorporate nicely into the bread. So we need to make it into a liquid. It's part of our, what would be our water content. So we're going to measure out into a little bowl our butter. So we need 50 grams of butter. Afternoon everyone, how are you all doing? I'm keeping a close eye on my comments. So if you have any issues as we go along, please let me know. Take it slow while we prepare our dough so that we know we've got it right. Now we need 50 grams of butter. So measure out your 50 grams of butter into a little dish, into a little dishy. 50 grams, 70 grams, too much. Just 50 grams of butter, and we are going to melt this in the microwave. Now, just like the milk, we don't want it to get too hot. Now, be precise with your measurements with this because the liquid balance, liquid to flour balance is really important when making any bread, and the butter is going to make up part of our liquid content. So we want to be precise with it, exactly 50 grams. 50 grams of butter. Great. Now, we're going to melt this in the microwave. I'm going to literally put it in for 10 seconds at a time so that it doesn't get too hot. We want it to be liquid, but we don't want it to be boiling hot. So, in the microwave it goes for for 10 seconds, and we're just going to melt it a bit at a time, 10 seconds at a time. So we've got our flour, our salts in there, and our yeast. Now, as I said, if you're using easy bake or fast action yeast, it's gone in dry. However, my dried fast action, what is it? Dried active yeast, what am I using? Needs to be reactivated. And we're going to reactivate it with a portion of the milk that we measured out and we warmed. Because with our ingredients, we don't want to add any more or take away anything from our ingredients list. We're going to use this to create our bread, nothing more, nothing less. So I am going to add a portion of my warm milk to my yeast. Don't have to measure it out, doesn't have to be any sort of weight. I'm literally just going to put in a few tablespoons of my warm milk in on top of my yeast. Now the only other thing I'm going to add is a little pinch of sugar. Now this is where it's important to make sure that your milk is not too warm. If your milk is too hot, it can kill your yeast. So be careful that your milk is not too hot. If it does feel quite hot to the touch, leave it to cool down. Don't put it on top of your yeast. I'm going to put a pinch of sugar in there. It's going to help the yeast to activate. Give that a mix, and we're just going to leave that to one side to wake up. It's like everyone in the morning or lunchtime, need some time to wake up. It's been in the fridge, it's so cold, warm it up, get a bit of sugar in there and it'll be happy. Right, let's check on our butter. Hasn't melted yet, so keep melting your butter at 10-second increments until it is liquid. All you need is for it to be a liquid. You don't need to be too hot, and be careful that it doesn't overheat, because that would be slightly disastrous. As I say, yeast doesn't like heat. You get your mixture too hot, you're going to kill your yeast. Let's have a little look. And once it starts to melt, once you get some liquid into your butter, we can mix it. So once your butter starts to liquefy, starts to melt, and it's quite runny, mixing it will help to break it down and make it into more of a liquid without it getting too hot. So that's what we're going to do as well. Every 10 seconds, we're going to take it out and we're going to give it a bit of a mix. The sun's come out, it's like it knew. So my butter is melting nicely, and I'm just using my knife to kind of break it up and give it a mix, because I don't want it to get too hot. If it gets too hot, it's going to ruin our mixture. So I'm going to chop it up and mix it. Stirring it like this will help to melt the butter so that you don't have to keep putting it into the microwave. Now you'll see, as you stir your butter, those little chunks do start to melt without it even needing to go back in the microwave. So the less we can put it in the microwave, the better, because the cooler it will be. And mine, I'm not even going to put back in, because stirring it like this is going to melt it absolutely fine. Now, you may have noticed that we haven't added our butter to our milk. Now, some recipes will tell you to add your butter to your milk and warm the two together. Now, that is absolutely fine. However, because we are using an egg in our recipe, we need to be careful that we don't add too much liquid to our dough. So we may not even need all of our milk. Okay, now my butter is completely melted. It's not too hot. It's done. Leave that to one side. Now the only other thing we need is an egg. Now the recipe calls for a medium egg, but if you've only got a large egg, don't worry. We're going to add the whole egg anyway, and that's where reducing our milk content will come in. So crack your egg into another little bowl. We're using lots of bowls today, and give it a little bit of a whisk with a fork. This just breaks down the egg and will make it easier to combine. So, fundamentals of bread, flour, salt, yeast and water or liquid. Now, the only difference with this recipe is our liquid is made up of all different products: butter, milk and an egg. There we go. Let's give it a little whisk so that it's all broken down. And I'm going to add into that our flavouring. So, I'm using vanilla essence today. However, once you've kind of mastered this recipe, you can turn them into kind of different flavours. So I seen one that was like a Bakewell jammy bun. And you could use almond essence or something like that. And I'm going to add my essence into my egg. So my essence is going into my egg, and we need 2 teaspoons. So 2 teaspoons of vanilla essence going into my egg. I'll give that a bit of a mix. Okay, so we've got everything we need here to make our dough. Oh, don't need the weigh scales anymore. We've got our flour. Now for easy bake and fast action yeast, your yeast should be in there. For dried active yeast, we put our yeast into a bowl and pour a bit more milk in there. It's a bit claggy. And we left it to wake up, to activate. Now mine has developed into like a little chunk. A little chunk of yeast, but it smells good. It's quite nice and frothy. It's not too warm. Nope, my milk wasn't too hot, so I don't have to worry about the fact that I might have killed my yeast. So there we go, yeast. We've got our butter, we've got our milk, and we've got our eggs. Now, my butter is a little bit warm, so I'm just going to leave that to cool for a couple of seconds. But we can add our other ingredients to our flour now. So what I want you to do is make a bit of a well in your flour, and I want you to add your egg in first. Your egg and your vanilla essence is going in. Hi Eve! Hi everyone. As people pop up and say hello. Pop our egg in there. And we're going to pop our yeast in as well. Mine's like a bit of a blob. A blob of yeast. In it goes. I'm sure that's fine. All that liquid that we used to activate the yeast is going in there too. Then we're going to add our butter. I don't want this to be too warm. I want to kill off our yeast. Make sure, do a touch test. No, it's okay. So all the butter's going in. And now we're going to add a portion of our milk, but not all of it. So make sure all of your butter's in there. Spatulas are great for scraping up all those little end bits that get stuck in the bowl. Okay, now I don't want you to add all your milk. I want you to add about half. So add about half of your milk, and then we're going to mix it all together. Mix the whole lot together until it starts to form a dough. There we go. Now it'll be quite dry at this point, but we do want to be careful with our liquids because we don't want to overload it with liquid. If you've used a large egg instead of a medium egg, you probably won't need to use all of your milk. I've used a medium egg and my mixture is quite dry, so we're going to add some more of our milk. Again, leave a little bit behind just to be on the safe side and bring it together. Nice, easy, literally just mixing it all in so those ingredients all come together. And I'm going to put in the rest of my milk. So I'm using all of my milk. However, if your dough is already coming together and is a bit sticky, then don't add the remainder of your milk. You'll be able to tell because if it's still got bits of flour lingering around at the bottom, then you can happily add your milk and it won't make it too sticky. Right, now the only other thing that we need to add that we have missed out is our sugar. Now, I've just realised that we probably should have added this earlier on, but that's not a problem, it will be absolutely fine. We're going to add our sugar in now because this is a sweet dough. I did this with a little egg. So, we're making a sweet bread, and we want to add our sugar. So, before you've mixed too much, weigh out 100 grams of sugar. 100 grams of sugar. We should have added this to the flour. I'll be honest with you people, I've skipped a step and we should have added this in with the flour, but we've remembered, so it's okay, and we're going to be needing this for ages, so it will incorporate eventually. 100 grams of sugar. Now it's quite a high sugar content for bread. 100 grams of sugar. There we go. Right, now we're going to take a few minutes and we're going to try and work the sugar into the dough. I apologise everyone. I'm not a professional baker, I forget things sometimes. But we're just going to mix that sugar into the dough as best as we can. Just in the bowl still, we haven't turned it out onto the counter yet. I'm just mixing it all in. Now let's check our recipe, make sure I haven't forgotten anything else. Butter, yes. Egg, yes. Vanilla, yes, yes. Okay, we're okay everyone. We're okay, everything's going to be fine. So, mixing that sugar in, just as well as you can. You can get your hands in there now if it's all come together. Get your hands in there, make sure they're nice and clean. Remove any jewellery because you're going to get covered in yeast as we go along. So just start kneading it in the bowl, and all you're going to do is just pick up the corners and the edges and fold it into the middle. Just like that, until it all comes together into a nice dough. You might have some flour at the bottom of the bowl, so kind of move the dough around so that it picks up that flour. And then we're going to turn this out onto our work surface and start the long and drawn out process of kneading it. Now get your muscles ready, because you're going to need to be rough with this. First thing that is very important is a nice clean work surface. I've already wiped all this work surface down, it's all nice and clean, and we're not going to flour it. We're not going to put any flour on it. We're literally just going to put the dough straight out onto the surface, like so. The reason for this is we don't want to add any more flour to our dough because we've got a perfect balance of dough here, and we don't want to add any more flour to it. It's nice and sticky. We've got the right amount of flour, right amount of liquid in there, so all we need to do is knead it, and it will stick to your counter a little bit, but as it comes together into a nice dough, it will unstick, so don't worry. Now what I want you to do is I want you to push the dough away from you and fold it over like that. Push the dough away from you and fold it over, just to bring it together a little bit more. Mine feels gritty because of the sugar, but the sugar's in there, it's in there, and it's going to mix in while we knead it, so it'll be fine. Right, now this is the best way to hand knead dough, especially when it's at this sticky stage. The best thing to do, once it's all together, all sticky and sticking to your hands and the surface and everything, that's all fine. We're going to pick it up from the side, we're going to slam it down and fold it over. Pick it up from the side, slam it down and fold it over. And that's all you need to do. So, picking it up from the side, slam it down, woo, and fold it over. And what this does is it stretches the dough, stretches it, and brings it back together. And that's all we want to do. We want to stretch out the dough and bring it back together. Stretching it is what builds up the gluten in the dough. So we want to stretch it, slapping it down, stretch it, fold it over, so it comes back together. Stretch and fold. Now, I much prefer doing this form of kneading while it's at this very sticky stage, because you don't have to get too much of your hands involved, which means that the dough doesn't stick to your hands as much. You're only really using your fingertips at this point, just to pick it up and fold it over. The sugar's incorporated a bit better now. It doesn't feel gritty anymore. Good work. And as you can see, as we pick it up and slap it back down again, all those bits that are sticking to the counter are being picked back up by the dough. So we kind of like slap it back down, and the dough kind of picks up those bits that are stuck. Now you'll be able to tell from your dough that it's already coming together a bit better. It's holding a bit better, it's forming a ball and stretching, and that's exactly what you want. But we're going to have to keep doing this for quite some time, about 15 minutes. So best way to tell if you've kneaded it enough is just to time yourself. It's 25 past now, so we want to be kneading until 22. Settle yourselves in, everyone, because it's going to be a long ride. Put some music on. In fact, put some music on. This one's for you, Richard. Alexa, play Seasons of Love. I thought Alexa had died then.
Seasons of Love, yes, by Rosario Dawson, Taye Diggs, Idina Menzel, Jesse L. Martin, Adam Pascal, Tracy Toms, Anthony Rapp, and Wilson Jame Radio on Amazon Music.
This one's for you, Rich. Need that dough. Great song for Grace, for everyone that doesn't know. Marvellous musical, being performed by Creators Musical Theatre next year. Seems like a long way away, but it's going to be good. Slap that dough.
525,600 minutes, 525,000 moments all day.
Oh yeah.
525,600 minutes.
Sing along, everyone.
How do you measure a year? In daylight, in sunsets, in dim nights, in cups of coffee, in inches, in miles, in laughter and strife.
Yes.
525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year in the life?
How about dough? How about bread? How about bread? Measured in bread. Alexa, stop. I can't let it play to the end because Facebook will mute my video. We've got to know how to knead our bread. Put it back in a bit. So, we're continuing with our slapping technique and folding. As you can see, your dough should already be smoothing out quite a lot. Now there's another way that we can knead this, which you might find a bit faster once it gets past that really sticky stage. So my work surface is already almost completely clean. All those sticky bits have de-sticked and my hands are quite clean as well. The dough has reabsorbed all of those bits of stickiness. So here's another way to knead. You use the palms of your hands, press them into your dough and push the dough away from yourself. Then pick it up with your fingers, fold it back over. So you're basically grabbing the dough and stretching it, grabbing it and stretching it and folding it back over. Grab it, stretch it, fold it back over. Now you kind of make your dough into a bit of a sausage like this. So then you can slap it, fold it, and then press with your heels of your hands again. Just like that. You use one hand, use the heel of one hand, use the other hand to hold on to the dough, and use the heel of that hand to push it away from you, and then fold it back over. Just like that. Now this, once you get into a good rhythm, I'm just going to keep going, stretching, pulling and stretching and folding and stretching. And Alexa, play. We can keep going now with this. Bit more song.
Keep going with Mountain by Firetone Nature Music Library is only available on Amazon Music and
play.
Keep going with Mountain by Firetone Nature Music
Alexa,
Library is only
stop. She normally just keeps playing the same song. Alexa, play.
Seasons of love. 525,600 minutes. 525,000 journeys to play. 525,600 minutes. How do you measure the eyeball?
You ready?
In truth that
I like
she
this bit.
learned, or in times that she cried, in bridges he burned, or the way that she died.
I want to be here. The official play.
Celebrate, remember, a year in the life of first love.
You got to remember the love. You know that love is a gift from above. Give us praise and love. shame over here, mine. Keep kneading. We've only done 5 minutes. You've got 10 more minutes of this lark, so get comfortable. Get your music on, get your telly on. I like making bread with the TV on. Watch a good programme, nice Disney film while I work my muscles as well as the dough. Push and fold, push and stretch. Now you need to be quite rough with it. There's no point being gentle with it because it will take you even longer. So the stronger and the rougher you can be with the dough, the quicker you are going to be able to knead it. So spread it around. Oh, and we're going to do a bit of a test with it now. Now I know for a fact it's not done, but this will show you what to look for, what not to look for basically. So to test our dough, we're going to pinch a bit of it, a good handful of it at the edge, and we're going to shake it so that the weight of the dough that's attached stretches it out. Now when your dough is done, it will stretch and stretch without tearing. However, when it is not done, it tears apart like that. It needs to be more elastic. When it is ready to prove, it gets really elastic so that it stretches and stretches and stretches, but it doesn't tear. And that's where we want it to get it to. It's not there yet. Ooh, and you can tell because when you pull it apart like this, you should be able to get it to a point where you can see through it without it tearing. But you can see there, holes already forming, so you need to keep on kneading. Seasons of... You know, that's the only thing that we missed from our opening day was everyone fighting it out vocally while we learned that song. All the people vying for audition places going "Ah!" over the top of everyone else. That's the most favourite bits of opening days, opening nights. For those that you don't know, I take part in some amateur theatre in the local area, and there is a marvellous new production company called Creators Musical Theatre, and they will be putting on a production, their very first production, of Rent next year. I'm looking at that and not you. Rent next year, that's what they're doing. Oh, so even though next year seems like a long way away, you should get on to the Creators Musical Theatre website and check them out because they are going to be doing some very interesting things. Ooh, the new creative minds to bring the arts back to the world. It is an industry that is going to be hit really, really hard by coronavirus, and we cannot let it die away. I just refuse. Even if you don't like the theatre, if you don't like musicals, if you don't like plays or anything like that, you have to appreciate the difference that the arts make in people's lives and how it enriches the world, the arts do. Really give people the outlet to speak their minds and broach difficult subjects. So we cannot let the arts and the world of theatre die away. Support your local theatres, support the industry. There's amazing things as well at the moment that you can actually access for free, because all these theatres and the West End and everything has been closed for weeks. Some companies and some theatres have been streaming their productions and their older productions live, well not live, streaming them for free online. National Theatre is one of the ones that I've watched a lot of, and these are not like small productions, these are like, you know, Benedict Cumberbatch's Frankenstein and Gillian Anderson in Streetcar Named Desire. These are big productions, and they're letting people watch them for free, just so that people can get a little bit of theatre into their lives and not forget how much they love it. And also, obviously, a bit of money, to earn a bit of money for all these poor performers and theatres that are really struggling at the moment. How long have we done? 10 minutes. We've only got 5 minutes left. We're doing well. My dough is starting to feel as it should now. It's still tearing a little bit, but 5 more minutes is going to sort that out. Oh, God. getting like all red in the face, proper working up a sweat. Try and be ambidextrous with your kneading, and then you'll work both muscles at the same time. Otherwise you'll end up with like one Popeye right arm and a little withered left arm that you haven't been able to knead with. Ooh. Giving it go, la la la, kneading bread. Ooh. So much fun. It's like a great recipe to make with kids because they can just fling the dough around and it's only going to make it better. The more you abuse this dough, the better it's going to be. Just stretch it and fold it and stretch it a little bit more. Fling it around, slap it down and fold it some more. Oh my God. Oh! So, once the next 5 minutes has gone by, can't go by quick enough, we also need a little bit of oil. Now, that wasn't in the list of ingredients that we need. Basically, you just need something to grease the bowl that you're going to prove your dough in. So oil's the best thing. You can use flour to help stop it from sticking, but I'd rather add a liquid than a flour than something dry, because if it does incorporate into the dough, the more moisture the dough has, the softer your bread will end up. And that is a rule to take with you into the future. The wetter the dough, the softer the bread, the more air in the bread and the softer the bread will be. So bear that in mind. I'm going to use a little bit of just vegetable oil just to grease my bowl, stop my dough from sticking while it proves. And you will also need something to cover that bowl with. Some cling film. I'm going to use my trusty shower cap that I use all the time because it's fun. Because it's shaped like a unicorn, it makes me smile, and that's why. Right, how's your dough getting on, everyone? Oh, I'm exhausted. Thank you, Teresa. Very nice to see. We're making bread today, so basically just torturing ourselves for 4 hours in the hope that we'll have something edible at the end of it. But we will, won't we, everyone? We can do it. We can do it together. Oh, mine fails, then yours fails. Yours fails, then mine fails. We'll be failing together, and we'll be winning together. And that is the way of the world. Oh, well, the way it should be anyway. Okay, right. We've only got a couple of minutes left. Really get in there. Oh, and we're going to test our dough now. So, oh, give it a couple more little folds. A couple more stretches. We stretch it. Stretch the dough. If you have a stand mixer with a hook attachment, you can save yourself a lot of energy by letting the dough hook do the work for you. And if you do have one and you decide to use that instead, I mean, it's a bit late now because we've done all the work, but in the future, you only need to have it in the stand mixer for 5 minutes. We're kneading by hand for 15 minutes because we're weak ass humans and it takes us a bit longer. But the stand mixer will get the job done in only 5 minutes. So bear that in mind. You leave it in the stand mixer for 15 minutes and you're going to massively overwork your dough. Okay, right. 1 minute left. Let's test our dough. It's nearly there. I can see already. Stretch. Let it stretch. It's already quite elastic. And we want it to stretch out and not tear. And it should get thin enough so that we can see the light through it without tearing. There we go. Compared to earlier, it's still stretching, but not tearing. It's nearly there. It's pretty much done. Give it a few extra stretches and folds. Good luck. And get in there. What about love? Singing when you're out of breath. It's always hilarious. What about love? Fold and stretch and fold and stretch and slow down. And fold and stretch some more and slow down again. Oh, drop my milk. Everything's okay. Don't panic. Stretch and fold. Ooh. Okay. Right. what we're going to do is we're going to oil up our bowl. Got it here. Don't worry, there's still some dough in the bottom of it. Put in a little bit of oil. Smear that around your bowl, all at the edges. Oh, and then we're going to shape our dough into a ball. And all we're going to do that is fold the edges into the middle, just like so, and then flip it over and tuck the edges underneath. Use your palms in kind of a scooping motion, like so, just to scoop in the bottom, and you'll end up with a nice, smooth, circular dough. Look at us, we made dough. Looks lovely as well. It's a bit mottled, but we'll need it a bit more. Panic, need extra bit of kneading. Should have quite a smooth surface by the time it's ready to be proved. And I'm a bit of a weakling, so Richard Ag, yours is probably done. Muscle man, so you can probably put yours into prove. Doing a bit of a couple of extra for good measure. Extra bit of kneading, just so that the surface of the dough is a little bit smoother. Fold it over. Oh, tuck it all under, like so. And then I'm going to put it in this lovely oiled up bowl. Oh, and it's going to prove. Oh my gosh, it's hot. That's good. We've got a bit of warmth into the room as well to help our dough to prove. Now, this needs to rest. Woo, not my shower cap. This needs to rest for an hour. We've earned a cup of tea and we've earned an hour's break. Apologise for the beetroot face. So, I want you to put this somewhere nice and cosy and warm in your house. If there's a little spot, doesn't need to go in a proving drawer or anything like that. It doesn't need to be in the oven or anywhere too hot. Just somewhere nice and warm in your kitchen will do. If you know there's a little spot that's always quite warm in the corner, that's going to be free from drafts, that's where you're going to leave it. I'm going to put mine in the cupboard under the stairs because it's where the boiler is and it's always nice and warm in here. So, in it goes, into the cupboard, under the stairs, and we're going to come back at 1:45 when we are going to shape our dough. Now, to shape your dough, you will also need to prepare your filling. So get your dough. I need to. It'll be fine, Jenny. As long if you've been kneading it for like that 15 minutes, it'll be fine. Even if it's still a little bit mottled, once it's proved, it'll be fabulous. So your filling. For your filling, you will just need your favourite jam. That's all there is to it. My favourite jam. Actually, I've got lots of, I love jam. Jam is just one of the most amazing things in the world. I've got a little bit of this blackcurrant jam left. And I've also got a jar of the most marvellous homemade strawberry jam that my mum gave to me. She's made this jam from scratch. There's no way I'm going to be able to open it. And I'm going to smash it and then I'll just take the jam out. But it's got actual chunks of fresh strawberry in there. So that is what I'm going to use. I'm going to mix it with a bit of my blackcurrant jam. So while you're waiting for your dough to prove, feel free to prepare your filling. All you need to do is measure out your 180 grams of jam. Give it a little bit of a mix so it's not too like chunky, and if you're using like a gelatin kind of jam, then it can be a bit slodgy. Just give it a mix so it's nice and smooth. And then you're ready to go. Oh, makes it absolutely exhausted. So, lefty loosey, yeah, hang on. Oh. Don't worry, I will get it off. I have my ways. And you know what, apparently, because there's a bit of science for you, metal expands in heat. The top of this is made from metal. I'm going to run it under the hot tap. The heat of the hot tap will expand the metal. Ah! This will work. Oh my God. I will get it open, don't worry. You watch this space. By the time we come back, I will have gotten this open. So that's it, that's what we need to do. I'll see you all at 1:45. Leave your bread, your dough, in nice warm place. Don't look at it, leave it in there covered up. I know Jim's at work. Where's a man when you need one? I'm going to put it under the hot tap again. Maybe it wasn't hot enough. But yeah, carry on. Weigh out your jam. You'll need your area nice and clear because we're going to shape our dough. And you will also need a baking tray of some sort. What's that hot in there? It's really hot there, really hot. It's because when you put the hot jam in and then you seal it, it causes like a vacuum seal on the jar. Right, let's try this one more time just for the hilariousness of it. Oh my God! Help! It's fine, I'll figure it out, I will. Yeah, you'll need a baking tray, nice big baking tray, the biggest one you've got, because we're going to batch bake our dough balls, and we're going to, once we've shaped them, we're going to assemble them onto our tray for their second proof. So get your jam measured out, and I'll see you all in an hour. I'm going to put the kettle on. Bye everyone, see you in an hour. Bye! Oh gosh, I am looking red.